Thank our witnesses for coming today. As Americans move into the 4th of July weekend, Independence Day takes on special meaning this year. Thanks in large part to the vaccines, this is the first holiday weekend where virtually all of America is back open, free. Families and friends will celebrate together. Grandmothers will visit and hug their grandkids. Crowds will gather again for fireworks. Every one of us on this subcommittee can tell the American people there is total bipartisan agreement on this subcommittee. The vaccine ended this pandemic. So how did we get to the point where America created the fastest vaccine in human history, manufactured, produced, and distributed enough vaccine to give a shot to every American who wants one? The story really begins 30 years ago when the United States Trade Representative began negotiating international trade agreements in earnest. On a bipartisan basis for 3 decades, USTR made protection of U.S. intellectual property a cornerstone of those agreements. About 25 years ago, Congress decided to make a major push on biomedical research. The Republican-controlled Congress worked with President Bill Clinton to double the size of the National Institute of Health. During the administration of George W. Bush, Congress made yet another major investment in NIH with strong bipartisan support. And then came former Energy and Commerce Committee Chairman Fred Upton, working with Diana DeGette across party lines. Their leadership brought us the 21st Century Cures Act. That was one of the most proud moments. I worked as Majority Whip on a piece of legislation that was bipartisan, working with then President Obama. We doubled, yet again, our commitment to the NIH. And just as importantly, we established in that bill the emergency use authorization process, which these COVID-19 vaccines were ultimately approved based on. These are provisions, emergency use authorization especially, that helped save millions of lives. Operation Warp Speed, of course, then built on those decades of work. America created the fastest vaccine in human history, but all Americans should be assured and confident. The vaccines were not rushed. They were built off a platform decades in the making, with the best minds in public health and private sector coming together to create world-class innovations and breakthroughs in a step-by-step fashion. If you want to get vaccinated, it is safe, effective, free, and available. Today, nearly 154 million Americans are fully vaccinated. It's about 47% of the population. At least 180 million people, or 55% of the population, have received at least one dose. And remember, we're not vaccinating children under 12 years old. Many Americans, thousands and thousands of Americans who contracted COVID-19 also have the antibodies. We're approaching that elusive goal now of effective herd immunity. Every American, again, who wants to get vaccinated can now get vaccinated. Scientists have made it clear that we don't need to achieve 100% vaccination for effective herd immunity. So let's give folks who are hesitant the reassurance that they're not going to be forced by the federal government to do something against their will. It's ultimately every American's decision. But we want it to be an informed decision. First, the vaccine works. Pfizer and Moderna's phase 3 clinical studies found that their 2-dose regimens were 95% and 94% effective, respectively, at blocking COVID-19, while Johnson & Johnson's 1-shot vaccine was found to be 66% effective in its studies. All 3, however, have been found to be extremely effective in preventing people from getting severely sick from COVID. So even if someone does get sick with the vaccine, the severeness of that sickness is dramatically reduced. Since vaccinations began, emergency room visits related to the virus have declined 77% among older adults. And as we saw, the highest percentage of COVID deaths in those early months were from seniors in nursing homes, especially, and the more vulnerable populations, diabetes, hypertension. While some breakthrough infections were reported, that is, infections that occurred after vaccination, those illnesses tended to be milder than infections among unvaccinated people. As we know, no vaccine is 100% effective. A very small percentage of vaccinated individuals will get sick, but that is not evidence that the vaccination does not work. Second, the vaccination is safe. Over 324 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine have been given in the United States from December 14, 2020 through June 28th of this year. COVID-19 vaccines were evaluated in terms of thousands of participants in clinical trials. The vaccines met the Food and Drug Administration's rigorous scientific standards for safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing quality that is needed to support emergency use authorization that I talked about earlier. Many people experience side effects after receiving the vaccine. We've seen reports of fatigue, fever, soreness. These last for a short period of time. A very small percentage of individuals experience an allergic reaction. The bottom line is, for the overwhelming majority of Americans, the benefits of getting vaccinated clearly outweigh the small risks. COVID is a dangerous virus that has killed 600,000 Americans, but the risk of death from COVID drops dramatically for vaccinated individuals. Let's all work together to get the facts out to the people of this country, particularly populations that have concerns or hesitancy. Let's present the evidence, but also reassure individuals that this decision is their decision. I believe that this is the strategy that will ultimately maximize the number of Americans who choose to take the vaccine.